Blakey and Tugs, they're talking Cardiff City and some other stuff. Blakey and Tugs, Dolly asked the questions on Blakey's Bootroom. Will always be blue.
Good afternoon, welcome to the latest Blakey's Bootroom here on Wales Online. At the end of a long season for Cardiff City. Nathan in the studio with Steve and Phil Smith, a new addition to the team.
Phil!
The season draws to a close.
I wondered when my replacement was arriving.
It's kind of a phased sort of departure.
I bet it's delighted people out there, you know, like going, hey!
Absolutely. Well, we thought the final weekend was going to be boring, dead rubber, nothing to play for, nothing to look forward to, nothing to talk about. Then Friday came. We had Russell Slade removed as manager, moved upstairs as it were. We've had the transfer embargo lifted, a new kit as well we had on Saturday.
Yeah.
Let's start with the Slade news, is obviously the most significant of all. Surprised by how it's been done?
A little surprised. I either thought it was a kind of like stick or twist kind of thing with Slade, but in typical Cardiff fashion, they kind of like have managed to fudge the issue by keeping him within the ranks. Is it harsh on Slade? I mean, again, there's so many, like, as we've all seen, there's so many opinions about Slade and the job he's done there out there, ranging from he's completely useless to wow, what a great job he's done guiding them through. I think you cannot deny that he's left them in a better place than they were when he took over, but that wouldn't have been hard because they were in a pretty poor place when he took over. But whether he's completely succeed in what he wanted to do, well, I suppose you have to say no, because the aim there was for at least a playoff place, and that wasn't achieved in the end. I suppose the way he might have been treated harshly is in the sense that, and he said it himself in the press conference after the Birmingham game, that, you know, he felt he provided the new man with a really good platform, and perhaps he has. You know, he's rationalised the squad. They got a better. You know, we know there's quality in there. Maybe you could look upon it, if you're going to be harsh, and say, well, Slade did the dirty work and now he's not going to reap the rewards that are potentially going to come from that. But
it's
I think on the whole,
dirty work to do, man.
Well, no, yeah, but I mean,
he's taken players out and things like that. I think if you're looking at like cutting the budget, cutting the squad, you've got to think that, you know, Slade brought in 14 players with 4 or 5 on loan, 10 signed. You're still going to have to get rid of some of them, mind.
Oh yeah, I'm not saying it's in a perfect state, but you'd rather be taking over now than you would from Solskjaer.
No.
You wouldn't. You'd like that. You want that.
I would prefer to be in the Solskjaer position where I've got that ridiculous squad to choose from. I can look at it for a month and then I can trim down to what I want, and then I can buy. So me personally, the next person that comes in is still, how many players? 35?
Still a fair few there,
40 on the books. So there's still an awful lot of work to be done. I think, personally, I just think, you know, structurally, I don't think the move, I don't really know what to make of the move upstairs. Because I don't know whether, I've always said they need an advisor, a football advisor. Now what you need is someone who, you know, has a lot of contacts in the game, as reputable in the game, can sell the club, can bring in players of a certain dynamic, and
they've ended up with a man who they didn't think was good enough to be manager.
Well, there you go, and also a man who, when he did dip into the transfer market, clearly struggled. You know, went in at lower levels, okay, loans, went to higher clubs, but got, in my opinion, loans that we probably had players at the club already who were the equivalent of. You know, if you look at the lad from Everton, name, winger,
Matt Kennedy.
Would you put him above someone like Kadeem Harris as a player? Personally, I wouldn't. So I think there's been so many mistakes made but it's quite easy to cover because things were so bad. Now, in my opinion, I would go right back to the beginning. If I was coming in, I would prefer to come in because you're in a no-lose situation. Do you know what I mean? I think it's clear it's improved. It had to improve. You know, like you said, it had to improve. So it's clearly gone forward. It's clearly improved. But for me, to be taken like looking to get a lot of credit for that, I don't think so. So long in the season, you went playing a system which we said for months here.
Well, all the time.
Can't play Whittingham in midfield in a 2.
Yeah.
Can't play this lopsided thing because you're leaving too much of a gap, which teams are just exploiting and getting through the middle of you. You know, we mentioned it so many times. Rival's not going to get you the goals you need. Persisted. So you, like I've said before, I think we probably let 2/3 of the season go and try, or best part of, and tried to make it up in the end at the back end of the season. And I said from day one, I just don't think that they got what it takes to be in the playoff position with the management structure and way the club is structured, because it's all relevant right from the top. You know, what happens at the top always ends up what you witness on the pitch. And for me, it was mentally, physically, professionally, it was always going to end up where it ended up.
Yeah, what about Slade then, Phil? It's been a turbulent journey, particularly in terms of the relationship with the fans. You were at the game on the weekend. What was the reception like as he said farewell?
Well, I mean, I think it said it all, that the ground was pretty much empty by the time he did his lap of honour. There weren't, the people who stayed were very generous in their applause, and there's clearly a lot of fans who think that he was given, you know, a bit of a hospital pass for this job, and he's done a good job, you know, to keep them on contention. But it really said it all that most people had left.
You couldn't work out if there was kind of like genuine respect for Slade or a kind of bit of relief.
I think you've got to respect him.
Going, hooray.
I think you've got to respect what he's done. I always say that. I think you've got to give respect to what he's done, because he's coming in under, you know, extremely difficult circumstances, and he has done he has made improvements on the job. But like I said, I don't think it was that difficult to make improvements on the job. I think where the problem lies is, number one, he didn't come in with his own team, and number two, those above aren't football people, don't have football knowledge, you know. And I look at, we're going to use Leicester a lot now as examples, and the ownership there, but the people they've got involved in the club, in the scouting, recruitment and stuff like that, are players, former players, or people who've been in football a while. So to me, it's just our biggest thing is, Cardiff's biggest thing is not admitting that we don't know much about this game, to be honest with you. And it's almost like the arrogance to look at people like myself who do know a lot about the game, and for them to question when you cross-examine their decisions, which then end up, you know, with 10,000 fans from 25,000 fans in your stadium. You look at it and you think, well, obviously you must know you're doing something wrong, or you're not doing enough right. And for me, that's where the problem lies. It's the whole, you know, you can't just look at the team or just at the manager. You know what I mean? That's not a fair assumption for me.
I think as well, what's important is I think there's a lot more to do to turn this team into playoff contenders than people realise. Because they've been in contention all season. You have to give Slade a lot of credit for the fact that he's kept them just about in it. But that game against Sheffield Wednesday, it wasn't just that they lost the game, it was the manner that they lost it.
Right.
Sheff Wedge were so forward thinking, they were so fluid in the movement, their conditioning was miles ahead of where Cardiff were at physically.
Right.
And I think it's, you know, Cardiff have got a decent team, a really hard working team. I don't think anyone would doubt the work ethic of this team. But I actually think there's a lot further to go before we can start talking about them as genuine contenders than people realise.
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking at, talking to people in the club, that there is a sort of thought within them that we're a couple of signings off, you know, a striker. I think, I agree with Phil, there might be a few more needed, really, to be up, particularly when you look at the makeup potentially of next season's championship. I think there might be a bit more work needed, fresh people brought in, to actually make them as competitive as they want to be. With the remit already is a top 6 finish, and anything else is not acceptable. So the interesting thing is going to be able to see, though, how on earth is this new relationship going to work between head coach and head of football? I mean, Slade Slade seems there's a hell of a lot of talk. Every time you talk about the head of football role with anyone and Slade, transfers are brought up an awful lot, as if that seems to be the main remit. The impression I get is that obviously they've got this transfer committee now and the new head coach coming in. The inference seems to be that not so much because, as Blakey said, I think hard to big up a lot of the signings Slade has made. I think the inference seems to be that Slade will be almost be more involved in, like, do you know what I mean, the mechanics of it, you know, the actual rather than
I don't know what you mean.
rather than actual decision making,
Well,
brokering the deal and trying to get the best.
For a start, you ask, is it going to be? And this is the problem when it comes down to a philosophy in your club, right? Because what'll happen now is the head coach, stroke manager, whatever you want to call him, is it his philosophy we're following? Or is
when it comes to first team affairs, it will be totally the head coach, I'm told. And with
so the head coach
said, if I'm asked anything, I'll give my advice. And Slade was very keen to just separate himself from those roles. He said, you know, if they want my advice, I'll pass it on. But the thing seems to be this head coach is going to come in, and it's his side, his signings,
the problem is
his
for me,
philosophy.
This is the problem. So when they sack that person or that person leaves to go on to bigger and better things, because that's one of the two things that happen.
Or they get moved upstairs.
Whose philosophy are you following? So what happens then? This is the lesson that the club haven't learned, right? Malky Mackay, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, Russell Slade. Take Solskjaer out, and you've got very similar in the way they play and approach the game. Cautious, right? Malky's team's much fitter, and he's probably more demanding of his players, right? But you've got a similar sort of philosophy in how you want to approach the game. Stick Solskjaer in the middle, you have the polar opposite, right?
Mayhem.
Right? So
mayhem.
The problem is, what the club haven't learned is that you have your own identity, your own philosophy, what you think, how you wish to play, how you think your fans want to go forward, what your fans will accept to play.
Well, that's very much about, you've got to look up the road. I mean, at Swansea,
that's what I'm saying. So then you have to, what happens then? You're not going, we'll go with red today, or blue tomorrow, green the day after. You go in like, you know, red, and then you might have a burgundy and a pink. Do you know what I mean? So they follow in some sort of sequence, some sort of order. At the moment, we just, because the club overall has no philosophy, you're just allowing people to come in, bring theirs. You know, after 6 months, I don't like that. It's not working. Out you go. John, in you come with your philosophy. What's yours like? Or if it does well, we'll use that for 2 years, and now not getting results. So out you go. Now, Steve, you come in with your philosophy.
But I mean, okay, by that then, you're suggesting maybe they should have stuck with Slade. Is that what you're saying?
No. What I'm saying is, the club. It's not the club's philosophy, is it? They bring in the manager with their philosophy, rather than saying, right, that philosophy, that manager's philosophy is very similar to us. What we think, what we believe, the kind of style of football we like,
I think
the kind
maybe
of players
that's
we
what
want to
they're
sign.
saying. They would say they're trying to do now. This is what they will try and do now. They're trying to bring a young head coach, manager. They're talking about bringing players through. This is only from the statements they've given thus far. It sounds like that they are trying to get it done.
They would say there is continuity, wouldn't they, by moving Slade upstairs, and I think they're almost trying to make a virtue of not rocking the boat, not ripping things up and starting again. They would say, well, look, there is continuity. We've got a head of football now who's been at the club 2 years or whatever. We've got a new young, you know.
I wonder
give me that look.
To me, I wonder.
It's freaking me out.
I wonder if the most important thing about Slade as well is that he could be the buffer between the owner and the new man, because there's a big reputation here with Vincent Tan, isn't there? Not a positive one necessarily for a new manager. A new manager might be looking in and going, I don't fancy Cardiff because I've heard this and that about the owner. And if Slade can be the man who can say, listen, I deal with that, I'm your man to go to, you don't necessarily have to deal with the owner you know,
I think that
could be
yeah,
could be a huge.
I agree with that. I think that would be a big part of this role. Is exactly right word. Is the buffer between.
Who
Vincent
believes
Tan and
Russell Slade will still be Cardiff City's head of football in 6 months?
I would give it. No, I don't. I would give it months. I just think, you know, we've got a guy there. He loves being on the touchline. He's 700 games into his managerial career. Personally, I think as soon as I don't know what you pick a club, Forest Green Rovers or Rotherham.
I think that's probably a bit disrespectful, you know. Surely,
well, okay, Rotherham or something
like that.
Yeah, something like that fits. I think he'd go for it. But maybe I'm doing just. I'm not really suggesting that's a bad thing. I'm just saying
Forest
I think
Green
that's
Rovers.
I don't know. Just popped
That's a
into
bit
my
low,
head.
isn't
Where are they now? I thought they were in like.
Yeah, right. Let's have a few comments from people who obviously lots of names being suggested of people who they might like, and we can maybe talk about some of them. Alex says, delighted that Slade is gone, had no confidence that he would be able to fulfil promotion for Cardiff City. I do hope the Robert Page link is nonsense though. My choice would be Nigel Pearson, but he may be out of City's reach, in which case I would choose Paul Clement. He had Derby playing the right way before bizarrely
Clement's
being
in a second favourite now with the bookies.
sacked. Stevie D says, regards to Slade, it's the right decision. He's done a good job and got us where he could. Now it's time for fresh blood. However, the club want an up-and-coming manager, and unless that's Carl Robinson or Paul Clement, they are going the wrong way. We need experience. Tony Mowbray or Neil Warnock all day long. He says. Wayne says.
He's got to be a good buffer between Warnock and Tan. That needs a big buffer.
Wayne says got to be Dave Jones and Craig Bellamy as a combination. We don't. That would be
acceptance here.
That would be fun, wouldn't it?
That would be fun.
It'd be great for Tag.
I love that. And just when I was doing so well there as well with all my friends, you know.
Why the fixation with Bellamy? Yes, he's got passion, but he's lacking any managerial experience. Tim Sherwood for me, says Bob.
I don't think that'd be a bad shout.
Another one suggests that Nigel Pearson could never work with Tan, which we kind of
could he work with Slade?
Touched on there. Adrian said, I don't know where you've written this. Says, Nathan, I appreciate you don't think this is the right time for Bellamy at City, and in some ways I accept what you're saying. But with a guiding hand alongside, wouldn't he be the one person who can really get the fans going, get the passion back?
I've always said, if you're going to put Craig in, put him in. Don't put him in as the number one. Put him alongside the number one.
Put him in as head coach.
Give him. He needs that experience next to him. But
he's got Russell.
Put him in. Put him in with someone
good with experience.
Someone a quality experienced manager with someone like, because at the end of the day, I don't want to see it. He's a mate of mine. I don't want to see him fail. Do you understand what I mean? And my honest opinion is, if he went in now, I don't. Speaking to Bellas a year or so ago, he wasn't saying, "Oh yeah, I could do the job." He was telling me, "Nave, so much. It's so difficult. So much to think about." We were chatting, blah blah blah. We had a good chat at one of the Welsh games for over an hour. Look, you know, the best opportunity. Who was that email off?
Bear with me 2 seconds.
Too busy checking your bank balance.
Oh, yeah, I was. Yeah, Stevie, I think Steve,
you're right. Spot on, nail on the head, mate. That's what I've always said.
It could also have been Adrian.
Oh, Adrian then. You just can't get the staff.
Adrian and Steve.
I agree. And I've always said that. If you're going to, you want him to be successful, and not just at Cardiff, you want him to have a career as a manager or as a coach, or, you know. So, worst thing you can do, so many of the young players now who are going in and getting jobs, if they fail the first time, that's kind of it.
Yeah. Okay. But what about names then, Phil? You know your lower league managers. Who out of all those names people have mentioned there, they fancy? Who do you think is perhaps most likely, and who do you think would be best?
Well, I mean, I think this is a huge point. I think sometimes in football you need a steady hand. You need to keep things the same, and I think sometimes you need a bit of a spark. And I think Cardiff really need a spark now for the fan base, for the players, and particularly getting in new players. And to be honest, I hope they're a little bit braver than just looking at somebody in the lower leagues who's done an okay job, or even, you know, I look at names like Pearson, and Pearson would probably do a good job, but I think they've got to be a bit braver than that. I honestly do. You look at what Sheffield Wednesday have done. Last summer, Carlos Carvajal came in, he coached in Turkey, a bit in Portugal, and people are going, you know, what's this all about? But Sheffield Wednesday had done their homework, and he'd obviously sold them a vision of how he wanted the team to play, the kind of player he wanted to bring in, and they've been consistent all season. And even when they started losing a few games, they stuck with the template, they kept playing attacking football, and then at the end it's paid off. And I think it's really important that Cardiff do that. I mean, for me, everything they're talking about in terms of bringing in youth, this new head of football, for me they should be looking at what Hearts have done in Scotland, because they went into administration, relegated into the bottom division. They've got an incredible relationship with their fans. They've got a director of football, Craig Levine, who sits on the board, who does recruitment, who's been there and seen it and done it all. And they've got a young...
Craig Levine at Leicester. Don't even go there.
Right, you look at what Hearts have done, they recruit better than anybody else there.
Yeah.
And they've got a young, driven head coach, and it's done brilliantly. I'm not saying they should get Craig Levine, but I'm saying
because he wasn't a Scotland manager, was he?
Oh, this is a totally different job. This is
Yeah,
about
I
recruitment.
respect that.
This
I'm
is
just
about
talking Craig
recruitment.
Levine.
It really has got to
Yeah.
be somebody, as Phil says, who's. I think the fans. I mean, we've seen it this season. The lowest record crowds, the apathy towards it.
I think
This needs to spark something, a bit of
Would you
Would you go
excitement.
for
Clement
would anyone go for Flores, the Watford manager? Because I cannot believe that he is actually becoming available.
I mean, he'll go. He could end up with Valencia. I mean, that guy's
Well,
going for a big job.
yeah.
For me, I think a really good appointment personally, who they should go for, would be Gus Poyet. That's my personal take. He's been linked with the Nottingham Forest job. I think Cardiff's a much more attractive proposition than Nottingham Forest at the moment for a coach. He's a big character, fantastic dialogue with the fans, and he plays decent football. You know, he's very modern, and he'll get the ball down, he'll get them passing it about. You know, it's not the most glamorous appointment, but you know, good coach, good record, and he's a big personality. For me, he would be the guy that I'd be on the phone to.
Is he the type of guy who could work, you know, alongside a head
he's
football
fiery,
with
mate.
Vincent Hand? Surely
He's
that.
fiery.
Everything is couched in those terms, isn't it? Could you work with?
But my gut instinct is, if you bring in someone like Gus Poyet, I don't think Russell Slade's influence on the football side of things is going to be very big.
Absolutely none.
I do not think Russell
Absolutely.
Well, I mean,
Slade...
And this is the problem, you see, is moving, it's almost understanding the psyche of football. You're asking, let's say Gus Poyet, right, who's been there, done it, got the T-shirt as a player, managed at the top level, and you know, really, is he going to be taking advice from Russell, or
No,
is he
I don't
going to
think
be going the other way? Really,
The
isn't it?
suggestion seems to be that won't be the relationship. The new head
doesn't
coach
report to him,
doesn't
yeah.
report to the head of football. That was made very
Okay.
clear when it was appointed. He doesn't report to. And as I said,
So
Slade,
just
Slade
keeping him on there,
himself was
really.
keen to say,
Keeping
you
him
know,
sweet. Really, is that what you're saying?
Well, I
'Cause
mean,
you're not
I-
giving me any.
I mean,
Because you was at the press conference. What I'm saying is, what you've said so far seems to be like, well, what are you doing? That's what I'm asking you.
Well,
for,
I'll be
for such an
honest.
important role, because like the head of football to me is head of recruitment, head of like your 8s, your 10s, all the way up your academy. He oversees things like that. He makes
Well,
sure
I
your
think that
scouting
will be
is
part
your
of
quality
it, yeah,
scouting,
yeah.
not just for your first team, but your youth teams and everything, your safeguarding. He oversees a lot.
The suggestion seems to be he will be doing all these things.
Sits
What he
on the
will not
board
be
as the
doing,
go-between
what
between
he
the
will not
manager.
be doing is advising, coaching, choosing.
He'd be on
human
the
interaction,
he should be on the tech.
first team.
He should be on the technical board of like the academy and stuff like that. It's such an important role, head of football. It's a football club.
But the thing is, is it an important role? We just don't know that.
Well,
I'll
at
be
any
honest.
other club, yeah.
I'll be honest.
That's my point.
Let's be honest.
At any
When
of the clubs,
question-
director of football or head of football is not. Where else? Can you give me another person who's gone into that job who isn't deemed an important role?
But no club has a head of football. They have
Or
directors.
director of football is the same thing.
So why haven't they called him
it's
that?
one of the
it
same
seems to me they've
things.
called him a head of football because they don't see him as a director of football in terms of overseeing.
They say
what
there's
we're
a
talking
job.
about.
It's not a charitable thing. There's a job there for him. But Slade himself seemed. I know it's very early days. But he's slightly confused
He
as
did,
to what
he
he
did,
would be
yeah.
doing
Okay,
himself.
so he doesn't know,
No,
right?
not really. He seemed to be we're going to talk
So
about
nobody
it and do
knows.
this. Nobody seems to know at this point. But
We'll get there.
You know.
I'm sure in the wash.
But I think so. You said about Gus Poyet being fiery, and I would argue that's a positive because I think they need that. I think they need someone to come in and
I
say,
do.
"This is
I
what
agree
I'm
with you.
gonna do."
I agree with you, but I just think when fire meets fire, you know what happens. And there's no way that someone like Vincent Tan is going to accept that sort of...
The problem they got is
because they're not... Do you understand what I mean? If what they need is them to admit then, okay, we need to be led to a degree. Not like under Mackay and Moody where we just give it all to you and kind of like let you at it. But what they need to admit for me, the club, the chairman, the chief exec, they need to learn the job they're doing. You've seen it at Aston Villa. People just going in and picking and thinking, yeah, we can just do this, and all of a sudden, it's just gone.
They're caught a little bit. They're in a difficult situation because they're caught between a rock and a hard place. In that, what they need is like a Poyet, or as you could argue, a Sparky. We said someone to excite the fan base. Someone's going to think. But then they've got this head of football role in now. They've got this owner that doesn't like that kind of conflict with the manager. So you've got a chairman who doesn't rate the former manager now, the head of football. They're going to struggle to appoint someone that's going to please everyone. And the problem with that is they might end up appointing someone that actually pleases no one. It's like we were talking about it earlier. I mean, there's been talk about promoting from within. Well, that is a complete no-no to me in the sense of anybody in there now is tarnished, really, or linked with Slade. You know, it'll just be seen as a continuation of that. It has to be from outside. And the big thing is, when you look at season ticket sales or bums on seats next year, it has to be someone who excites the fan base as well.
Yeah.
How on earth do they manage this kind of tightrope act between it? It's almost impossible if you really look at it.
This is my big concern, is that the job will go to someone who'll say, yep, I'll do that. Yeah, that's fine. Oh, that sounds great. Yeah, let's do that. That's great.
Yeah.
And I know what you're saying. Maybe they probably won't do it, but for me, they really need to go for someone who says, this is how I play football. Here are 10 players who I want you to go out and look at and see if you can get them, because this is what I want to do.
If you had a Gus Poyet with an older sort of, I don't know, chuck an old name at me, Laurie McMenemy. Don't know what he's. I'm not saying him. But you know that level of respect thing is automatic almost. Do you know what I mean? And you get a balance. Whereas I think, all due respect to Russ, I just don't think that.
Yeah, but again, the point is it's nothing to do with Russell Slade, isn't it? That's the point, isn't it? It's an absolute. So that doesn't really matter.
I can't really
look. I don't think anybody knows how it's going to work, not even people at the club, until it's actually working or not working. That's the problem. Yeah. It's like a leap into the unknown almost.
Suggestion is here that somebody has heard, and this makes sense. Neil Ardley, obviously used to work at Cardiff.
Yeah, used to be the academy guy.
With the academy, highly thought of at the club.
Doesn't
I think that's
get
a big risk. I think that's a big risk. It's like stepping from League 2 to Championship is a big step. Now, I'm not saying you don't give him the opportunity, because he could do very, very well. But I'm saying at this moment in time, I don't think we need to be taking that much of a risk.
That's who it's going to be, though.
I think they need to take.
It's having the conversation.
It's not going to be purely.
It's going to be somebody like Neil Ardley, that kind of level.
But I'm saying if you're going young and like the suggestion of Gus Poyet, it would be far better because he got so much more experience. I think at the level where they're at.
I totally agree, but they're not. They won't pay the money. They won't.
True.
And I think one of the things that's underplayed is about a manager coming from the lower leagues. It's not just about a step up in terms of the level of football. It's a step up in terms of scrutiny. You know, I'm sure Neil Ardley is doing a great job at Wimbledon, and fair play to him. But the level of scrutiny managing AFC Wimbledon compared to coming into Cardiff City.
Well, I think poor old Russell.
I think he suffered from that a little bit.
Deal with him.
Too much scrutiny. It's not good for the soul.
Not mentioning any names.
Not for well, we have to do a bit of scrutiny now and then, but you want an exciting person, a fiery person, a man to motivate the spark and all that. But as you just said yourself, Chum, I just can't see that.
But I shouldn't think we should undersell. You've got a team that's finished 8th, you know, who with a bit of investment could be going places. And you look at Gus Poyet and you say they won't pay the money for him, and you might well be right. But at the moment, his other options seem to be Nottingham Forest and Ipswich. And if Cardiff are bold enough to go in and say, you know what, we reckon we can sell this.
But they're two big clubs, mind.
But
Nottingham Forest, they're Bournemouth. I don't think I wouldn't look at it as listen. Every owner goes through managers these days. That's just the way it is. Their success rate almost has to be like 40-50% to be kept in a job. And if they have 6 or 7 losing games, this question mark time is 9 times out of 10 you're out the door. So, you know, Nottingham Forest, Ipswich, okay, they're more, you would say 80s sort of, but they are still massive clubs. They are still great jobs for people if you can get them firing. I mean, Forest, you imagine, you get Forest back to anywhere near what they were.
Yeah. Just a quick
You know what I mean?
He hasn't piped up with his old mate Eddie Newton yet, has he?
No, I know.
Whenever there's a job going, ironically, this role would kind of be ideal, wouldn't it, for somebody?
Yeah, but
It's not his
Eddie's got Eddie's got other things in the pipeline, and you know he's been moved into a position at Chelsea, or for this season, where you know there are problems at Chelsea, as we all see, and they're trying to resolve them problems. So.
I tell you what, he hasn't piped up
He's
about,
deep
which I'm amazed about.
I ain't saying nothing. I'm waiting for you to say it for me.
He sat here last August, and when asked to predict where Cardiff would finish, 8th.
Yeah.
I take no pleasure in it.
Blakey.
I take no pleasure in it.
Take no play, but you're spot on
It's the
there.
experience, mate. It's just.
But I'm enjoying your modesty and not.
Well, wait till the
rubbing
cameras off,
nose.
mate.
I can't forget what I
Moonwalking
said.
on
Up
the
as
table.
champions, wasn't it? Or down. They haven't been anywhere. It's been a long season.
Let's have a couple more comments in.
I think I might have.
I think it's
You're
second.
right.
Darren says, couldn't agree more. We need a proven manager rather than an unknown, somebody who has the ability and the coaching team to really produce the goods.
Well, that's the other question. What happens to your Paul Trollops, your Scott Young?
Well, we were saying that,
Sure.
ironically, but they already have a head coach. Paul Trollops'
Yeah,
job
he's head
title
coach.
is head coach of Cardiff City Football Club. So what that
So
means,
do we
what it
presume
means
this
for him, I
new
don't
guy
know.
comes in and wants his own assistants with him?
Listen,
Like,
but
he would have to,
This is what I was trying to say to you. The Russell Slade coming on his own, I've never. I don't know that. I don't know. Not to bring one person with you.
But he did try.
Yeah, he tried to bring Nugent, didn't he?
He tried to bring Nugent, yeah, but it didn't
not to
come
be
off,
allowed to bring one member of staff with you. There's not many. I tell you
The
now.
whole reign's been.
There's not many managers will come
run
in.
down their contract before
Right.
as a manager. It's so rare as well.
How many people are going to come in without saying, "Well, I'm bringing my head coach. I'm bringing my
Well, so that's the done thing, isn't it? That's what you do. You bring in the people you're comfortable with around. Particularly going into
They're going to bring in at least. They're going to bring in themselves and at least 3 other people. So you're looking at least 4 people. Most managers, especially experienced, even the likes of young Neil Ardley, he'll have 2 or 3 people he'll want to bring with him. That's just the nature of the game, because football's very much about trust. If a manager trusts you, he'll play you. He doesn't have to know your life and what you do, but if he trusts you in what you deliver, he'll play you, he'll look after you, you'll have a good relationship 9 times out of 10. But if he doesn't trust you, now managers get really paranoid. If you look at like what happened to Middlesbrough this year, players just said, right, closed door. Manager, you can stay on the outside. Sorry, but if you're not with us, then we are together. Now, again, I suppose there's a lot of questions. Let's just say that.
There are
There's a lot of questions, and that appointment is going to be
It's a
so
massive appointment. But you wonder, almost like you said, have they almost like backed themselves into a corner before they're even taking it.
Do you know what we always?
They seem to have put limitations on the whole thing before they
always
started.
say, without a plan. So whoever they put in place, this is what I'm saying about go again back to your philosophy. Whoever you put in place, what is it part of your overall plan? Because I don't think we have an overall plan.
But they're not the only club not to have an. They're not the only club to bring a manager and say, "You do it for us and show us the direction."
No, I'm not saying. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. But what's good for the goose? Do you know what I mean? 2 wrongs don't make a right. Now, the best way to go, in my opinion, you follow the most successful teams. You don't follow the examples of the teams who are unsuccessful, i.e., like Aston Villa at the moment. Yeah, you try and implement what the best teams are doing and the way they're going. You try and
Leicester,
hold
didn't
on
they
to
just bring in
their
Ranieri? He was looked upon as a bit of a left field appointment.
He brought
and brought in.
Yeah,
He wasn't
but
seen as a
Ranieri,
continuity candidate, was he up there?
bro, he
Look
finished
what he's
second in the
achieved.
Premier League. He's been around the world. He's a world.
Yeah, but he's hardly a continuity candidate. I mean, I'm not suggesting someone of that calibre for Cardiff, but he wasn't he brought his own philosophy.
But if you look at why Pearson was sacked, you're not going to have continuity, are you?
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't like they were expecting to sack him. So I mean, it was on the back of all the nonsense, right? So then you have to go and start again, sort of thing, right?
That was a left field appointment, though.
Yeah,
but I do fear for Cardiff with the calibre of
I don't fear. They're in a good. Listen, they're in a position where you hold all the cards. Like I say, it's just admitting that we might need to be led for a while, rather than thinking, no, because we're the money men, we lead and we know what we're doing. I always say, people who've come from outside football step into football, whether it's people who come from college, whether you're coaching, whether you're managing, whether you're owning, whether they step into football, and because they're fans of it, they think they know it. It's like me going into a garage tomorrow and pushing the mechanic aside and saying, what are you doing? Yeah, let me screw this and tighten that.
Are you doing car work? No.
No, you understand my point.
I do know what you're on about.
Yeah,
just about. I know.
It's like me coming in as a journalist now and shoving you aside and saying, you don't know what you're talking about. Yeah?
Why am I sound so familiar? What's ringing so many bells? No.
But in football, it's incredible. There are so many people. It's why I think you see so few teams successful. That's my opinion.
Whoever does come in, we talked about the current situation. The transfer embargo was lifted. That sort of got lost on Saturday. First thing you do, get Lex Immers signed up.
This is exactly what we've been talking about. I love Lex Immers. I think he's brilliant. I'd definitely sign him. Russell Slade said after the game, "Oh yeah, that's going to come to a conclusion soon. I'm looking forward to that." What if the new manager comes in and goes, I don't want that kind of number 10, I want a real playmaker, someone to start and finish moves.
I thought
that just sums it up.
The interesting thing was as well, when I asked about Tom Lawrence, he said, oh well, he'll go back to his club. Yeah, as if a decision had been made on him as well. I'm not saying Tom Lawrence pulls many trees, but just there was kind of like a conversation of, I want Immers, I don't really want Lawrence, he's going back.
I think what's evident.
And I'm sure he said something like, let's see what the new man thinks.
Yeah,
surely you should be asking what does the new man think of Lex Immers as well. I mean, rather than we're close to it's closing in on the signing. This is a really early example of this. How on earth is this relationship going to work?
Well, I suppose they've got a transfer committee, haven't they? So whoever comes in won't be like
Slade will be wanting an escape committee, like a Colditz rather than a transfer committee. But yeah, they say the final decision is always we think. I mean, the interesting thing I think as well is to see will be if this new guy's brought in again the transfer. What kind of funds? What is there? What is the level of I mean, that's going to show the true level of ambition.
Because you said earlier on the season, when you're trying to cut, it's very difficult to go forward because you're obviously in reverse. You cut in. When you cut things, they don't grow, do they? That's just nature. So it's very difficult to get momentum going forward whilst you're cutting. Hence why this season's been more of like a stabilising. You've not really gone forward, you've gone forward, but you've stayed in that position really. For a long time, right?
You know what I mean?
Consolidated. So, but be careful. You can go backwards as well as forwards. That's what the club need to understand. It's very important because what you don't want is be getting off on the wrong foot at the start of the season where fans are disgruntled again about the manager or anything. I can't.
Well, they've got a massive problem. Because imagine that suddenly next week they go, we've got our new head coach, Mr. Robert Page. He's going to be met with a kind of like, is that it? You know what I mean? It has. If they're possibly going to drag the fans along,
like that,
drag the fans along with them, it's going to have to be an exciting prospect, and I just can't see how they can balance the whole thing. Head of football, head coach Robert Page, is like, it's not going to get the juices flowing, and more importantly, it's not going to get people buying tickets for August's curtain up, is it? It's going to find people still feeling, underwhelmed by what's going on down there.
Yeah, intriguing weeks ahead. I think let's have a couple of quick fire opinions, yes or no's. Matt Connolly was named Player of the Year, I think, on Saturday night. Fair, correct?
Yes, for me.
Correct.
I think
always said he was the best centre half. Did I not?
I can't remember.
Him and another.
Hang on, just because you said don't start rewriting history right back.
Best centre half. For me, best partnership was him and Manga. Manga's had an indifferent season with injuries and what have you. Morrison's done decent at times as well. But I've always said, Connolly, for me, first name on the sheet.
Yep.
as a back four.
Yep. Fair.
Yeah, absolutely. He's had such a consistent season. I mean, personally, my personal opinion is I think Bruno Manga's a better all-round centre-back. But this season, I don't think there's any doubt Connolly's been the man. He's been a rock.
I mean, Connolly in a way has been fortunate with other people's misfortune, hasn't he? I mean, PCS is saying he probably wouldn't have even started the season if Manga hadn't been injured in Holland. He wouldn't have been near the field. I'm pretty sure he would have gone with Morrison and Manga there. And that sets the tone of Connolly's season. He got the break almost. And you've got a fair play to the guy. You know, he never let performance levels dip. He never gave Slade, even when everyone was fit, really, the opportunity to go, no, you come out for a while, you're not doing it. He kept his performance level so high throughout. He was the closest thing there to an ever-present and a rock in defence.
I think the other thing about Connolly is as well, he's by far the best defender we've got in terms of bringing the ball out from the back. And he gives him a bit of an extra dimension. I think when he's missing, I think there's too many balls just go from defence, aimless balls into the strikers, and I think that's one of the reasons why Connolly's so important, especially with a new man coming in. I hope he keeps his place.
Well, I expect him to play a big part.
Yeah.
I would sign his new deal as well.
Absolutely. Okay, somebody who's out of contract, led the team out on the weekend, Ben Turner.
Yeah.
Do you get new deal or no deal?
Well, I mean, from what I'm hearing, there's no real work done or any movement on it. And,
Well, the fact he led the team out, wasn't he with his kids as well? Doesn't that suggest that was a
I
farewell
think he's going to be looking for another club, which I find a little bit strange, but just because I thought he played quite well in the first half in particular. I thought
he was really, really good, but to me looked like he was flagging badly. Which is understandable.
He's had a dreadful time with injuries. I mean, he's had 4 operations on his ankles.
I hate to say it because it sounds very cold, but I think he's a great defender for the Championship to just go and edit sort of thing and clear people out. But when you start getting injuries upon injury, that's what I'd say.
Yeah, he's had a terrible time.
And it's not like you ain't got 3 or 4 very good centre-halves anyway.
We say that. Manga this summer.
Yeah,
again, the vultures,
I would say since January, February, he hasn't been like... he hasn't been where you're thinking, there's no way you're holding on.
There seems less chance of him going this summer than there was last summer, where he was player of the year and all the rest of it. So, and of course, they got Sean Morrison, who's had an operation.
He's had Manga's had sort of a broken season, isn't he?
Oh, totally. I mean, he's had a couple of major injuries, one at the start, one halfway through. Various ailments.
Yeah. So it's been a really stop-start season.
But Connolly, for me, I think,
Yeah, okay. New kit, which was worn for the first time on the weekend.
It was okay. It was basically when if you went into a shop and said, "Have you got a blue Adidas shirt?" You kind of go, "Oh yes, here you are," and it would be that shirt.
That one.
With a Cardiff badge on. No, those are stock pictures. That's not from the game.
That one then.
No, I think that's the older. Is that the new one?
Well, that's the embarrassing moment when you realise the Echoes used old pictures.
The new one? No, it's a piece about the past. It's not current match.
Go to the match.
That one, isn't that Turner? That one, isn't it?
There must be one. I don't know. It's just a blue top.
It's just a blue shirt.
It doesn't have that.
It's not going to say it. Yeah, the same one that's on the other page.
That's the old one. No, it's not got the white on.
It's the same
It's
picture.
basically just like a blue shirt with the 3 stripes down there, blue shorts. It's plain. It rather,
similar to the Wales.
See the way this one sort of goes darker. It doesn't do that.
Okay.
It's quite smart.
I feel like Trini and Susanna with a nice collar that sets it off wonderfully.
Indeed.
No, fine.
Solid.
If I was on the beach in Marbella in the summer, I wouldn't feel dreadful if I was a Cardiff fan walking. I wouldn't be thinking, wow, this looks absolutely dreadful.
It's blue.
It's blue. Exactly. Look on the bright side. Let's look on the bright side. So no, yes. Okay. An okay kit. That's the least of the problems.
It is indeed.
The kit, I think.
It is indeed. Okay, well there we go. I haven't really got any more yes/no issues.
You're not very good at yes/no questions.
A couple more comments, maybe to sort of finish this up. Bob from Cumbrian, and maybe this is a nice positive sort of theme to finish on. One thing is for certain: there are no guarantees in football. Big name managers fail regularly. It needs a positivity all round from the media, the press, the same thing, fans, et al. Whoever it is, I'm looking forward to next season. What do we?
Well, it'd be lovely to see. It'd be lovely to be in a position where you understand, you see what the plans are put in place, and there's a good relationship between club and fans, and I always say you give fans a general idea of your plans, of what the club, where you're going forward, what you intend to change and improve. I always say you if you're fractured, it's very difficult to be successful when you're fractured. Simple as that.
They turned a bit of a corner in terms of that in recent months. You can't deny that, because it was abysmal, wasn't it, a few months ago? Do you think that stays for next season, or is it all dependent on this appointment? Well, I don't know, because the season
ticket thing, and people getting free tickets.
Well, they give a lot of free tickets. They certainly helped the sort of vibe, didn't it?
I thought it was a fantastic idea to get some sort of momentum going. But yeah, now it's the end of the season. Is that going to work for next season? They're not going to get free tickets, are they? So are the season ticket sales, is it going to depend upon, I think, largely, who you appoint?
Well, I said that's a massive factor, isn't it? When you choose to go. It is. If you decide to go down in August, it's going to be because you're excited.
I think people will go anyway, yeah? But put it this way, the patience isn't what it was. So whereas before you might have got 15, 18, 20 games, and then a few fans thought, yeah, I'm not going. Yeah, because it was kind of like after the Christmas, the fans seemed to really start to die off, didn't they? I don't think you get 18, 20 games. I think you'll get more like 8 or 10 games before fans go.
I don't think there's any suggestion no one's going to be behind the new man.
You've got to be behind him.
Of course, it's just...
Because stranger things have happened.
Okay, exactly.
Look what you boys were saying about Ranieri when he came in.
It's true. I thought it was going to be a disaster there. So you never can tell. But it's just so much got to be the right appointment. Let's be honest. Since Mackay, really, Solskjaer and Slade, they're two appointments that have... One was a disaster. One was, you look back on it, fair to me... They've got to get it right there this time around this summer. It's got to excite. For me, it's got to be not too old, not too young. Got to have a good bit of experience. So it's got to tick a lot of boxes.
And that is,
I don't know. You'd have to. It's not a decision. Maybe if it was on the board, I'd make a flipping decision like that. But I'm not. It's a decision that it's gonna take time. You have to sit down and really. I'm hoping because they've obviously known that Russell's coming to the end of his contract and they're not renewing it. I'm hoping that these talks, the decision has already been made. Yeah, they've got their top 3, because you always have a plan B and plan C.
They do have a shortlist, yeah.
But they have got a shortlist. I think they're pretty focused on somebody. I don't know who it is.
Oh, you want to give your insights?
No. I don't have a name, but I, from what I was told, sort of off the
that same inside source.
Focusing on
that same inside source.
Yes,
giving Russell a 2-year contract.
My old mates, up there. But I couldn't tell you as to a name at this point in time, like a lot of people.
Okay.
We shall see.
Okay, chaps, we'll leave it. I think thanks for all your efforts. Great to see you, Phil.
Thanks, Phil.
Yeah, come back next year, Phil.
Hope to see you in the future.
Why didn't you even mention Sunderland though?
Big Sunderland fan, Phil.
Don't talk about Sunderland.
Well, they're not there yet.
Massive weekend for Monday, and it's
right there.
Win away. Is it Wednesday night?
He was looking forward to seeing them.
Jermaine Defoe, what a finish, by the way.
Yeah, well, I was down at Cardiff City Stadium watching a 1-1 draw.
And listening.
Watching a meaningless 1-1 draw. That's why we love it.
So, yeah. But it must be hard being a Sunderland fan every year.
Oh, we always get up.
I just couldn't go through it, I don't think. Every year being like having that fight.
These are vintage days, Newcastle going down, they're staying up. The times of our life. Yeah, I regret that.
Right, enough about that. Thanks, chaps. Thank you for joining us. Thanks for all your comments and questions today and throughout the season. All the latest on the managerial situation coming up on Wales Online over the coming days. And I think we'll be back very soon, maybe when the new boss is appointed, to pick through the bones of all that. So we look forward to seeing you then. Thanks again.